Hi, I am Rajiv Aundhe. Uh, Today we'll be covering the topic of environmental management. Environmental management plan. Uh, so in this topic, this is a very vast topic, as we have seen in the last session. The impacts themselves are a cause of are a result because of various activities depending upon the nature of the project, the manufacturing process, the scale of the activity, the location of the project. So, and as we all know, environment is a very multidisciplinary subject, and therefore the management measures which have to be evolved are have to be uh, uh, over a complete different are of different nature depending upon the uh, project on hand. In this particular session, I will try to cover the various mitigative measures which are to be taken for each of the components like land environment, air environment, water environment, biological environment, and social economic environment. While taking up this, I had tried to cover uh, all the three types of sources, that is area sources due to large clearance or conversion of land mass. Second is line sources, that is due to highway or similar projects. And the third is manufacturing industry. Again, within the manufacturing industry, we have a very wide range of industry also, from ranging from very large thermal power plants to iron and steel plants, cement plants. As an example, as a typical example, I have taken the bird drug industry throughout the entire session. And initially, I will be covering some basic concepts of what is an EMP and its contents. And then at the end, I'll be covering the how we incorporate management aspects into the EMP. As we have seen last time, the EIA study comprises of various steps. That is, one is which are the principal steps, which are that is we study first the project related environmental aspects. Then we study the concurrently we study the baseline environmental status of that area. Based upon these two studies, we assess the impacts due to the project, and once the impacts are assessed, we can develop an environment management plan to address the various concerns which are identified during the impact assessment stage. Now, EMP is the end result of EIS studies. A well-prepared EMP with clear responsibility fixation and budget helps to ameliorate the environmental impacts to the maximum and have a sustainable development. So, what is an environmental management plan? A environmental management plan is a site-specific plan which indicates which of the EIA report recommendations and alternatives will be actually adopted and implemented. There might be several things which we have discussed during the EI report, and we need to crystallize and come up with the final plan, which is submitted, of course, for the consideration of the SEAC committee or the EAC committee, that is Expert Appraisal Committee here in India. And the technical committee, again, the expert appraisal committee again comprises of experts from various fields, which goes through the EMP prepared, and then they approve the EIA EMP report. Thus, this is a very important link which helps to incorporate the environmental factors in the overall project design. Now, due to amendments in the EIA notification, the environmental monitoring EMP, which includes environmental budget, environmental mitigation measures, and monitoring, have become a legal responsibility of the proponent. Uh, the During an EMP, what we do is we identify the activities which are there in different phases of the project, and for each of those, we develop a management plan which is given in the project. The management plan includes, of course, responsibility of fixation and the budget. So, what are the components of a good EMP? The components of a good EMP include summary of the predicted environmental and social impacts related to the project, description of mitigation measures and plans, description of monitoring activities and plan, both of which are to be done for during various stages of life cycle of the project. Then the institutional arrangements, which includes what are the different responsibilities which will be who is responsible for what actions and when it is to be done. Then we have implementation schedule of the EMP and the reporting procedures, estimated costs or budgets of the project, and identify the legal obligations and compliance reporting schedule. Now, as I mentioned, we will be taking up one area activity or one large scale activity, and followed by other different sectors which have maximum impact on the various components in those kinds of projects. Now, for example, in case of land, land environment, when we discuss the impacts due to the on the land environment, we saw that mining is an activity which creates a very big scar on the environment, and it's a very huge activity also. Um, the as we have seen, the mining uh, results in creation of huge dumps outside and a scar on the landscape where the mineral and overburden is removed. So the mine planning or mine closure and rehabilitation in order to ensure a sustainable mining incorporates has to be done over all the three phases of mining. That is, once is before you start the mining itself, the mine should be surveyed properly and with scientifically through along with the mining and the environmental experts who ascertain the eco-fragile features in the vicinity, and uh, what is the scale of mining which will be involved, etc. And the rehabilitation program of the mine is worked out at this stage itself. Of course, this is now mandatory also both through the IBM, which regulates mine in India, Indian Bureau of Mines, and the MOFCC, which looks at all these plans before they grant an environmental clearance or a permission for mining or a mine for 5 years in this particular project. Now, concurrently, once the permissions are obtained, during the mining stage, we need the proponent needs to take up various activities or environmental protection measures so that the mitigation can be done during the has to be done during the mining stage itself, because other if we don't do it, then this is what is the end result we will have. And then after the mining is done, and we although we may have a mitigation plan or a rehabilitation plan, it may the whole area may not be fully filled up, and we'll have a some small portion which is not getting filled up. So the keywords here are, during mining we should undertake uh, various measures. First is like this is particularly I am talking in terms of a open cast mine. Open cast mine, as we see in case of iron ore mine in Goa, Gujarat, Goa, Karnataka, and in Orissa to a very large extent. Here we have the mine design itself. That is, the design of benches, how we can reach the pit bottom. It starts from that, and then the overburden which is removed from the mine until we reach the ore. That overburden has to be properly dumped. Otherwise, it will result in a lot of soil entering into the nearby waterways and entering into the nearby productive lands like fields, etc. So planning and management of dumps, overburden dumps, is a very important aspect of mining, which is has to be done concurrently, and the dump has to be stabilized. Now, various techniques of dump stabilization have been shown here, which include pitching with laterite, so as to ensure that the slopes remain stable. Then we'll see, as we can see here, a garland drain is provided at the toe of each dump, so that any water which is washed off during the rain gets accumulated here and does not carry over the suspended matter below. And this helps a lot in ensuring that the suspended solids do not enter into the waterways. Then the slopes of the dump are covered with a geotextile membrane, on which plantation is taken up in order to ensure that the slope becomes stabilized as soon as possible. So an example of concurrent mining, that is concurrent backfilling, is shown in this particular slide, where we see that backfilling is been carried out systematically as the mining is progressing. The backfilling is going on, progressing in the on the mining is progressing towards the uh, left of the slide, and the progressive backfilling is seen on the right of the slide. Now, as we saw earlier, to add in order to ensure that after mining there is a the mine closure takes place in a scientific manner. So as we can see in this diagram, initially we had a natural ecosystem where there was a ore body which was present here, which is marked here, and then we started mining in this particular area, dug a pit here, and have disturbed the whole landscape. Now the way out is to restore the landscape back to normal and plant trees on that. Or if there is a certain portion of the land which is which still remains, which cannot be filled up because of lack of material, etc., then this portion can be used for certain secondary uses. Like we have a mine somewhere in Goa, where some aquaculture was developed by one of the industries. That was, I think, Sakhri mine in Goa. Then we have this particular photograph where a mine where which has been fully filled up after the more or less fully filled up after the mining has occurred, and vegetation has been planted over it. Plus, there is a settling pit also. Similarly, there is another a dump on which this has been plantation has been taken up. Uh, Now, the second area where the land environment faces a very huge impact is the waste dumping. Now, here I would like to first bring to your kind attention the various startling facts why waste dumping needs to be taken very seriously, and actually we are running out of time very badly. As we can see here, nearly 1,20,000 tons of municipal solid waste is getting generated every day, and only 70% of it is just collected. There is no treatment or disposal as per the MSW rules. Only 70% of it is getting collected. The remaining 30% we can see everywhere, which is littering the landscapes in India. Then out of about 8.14 million tons of hazardous waste which is generated every year, only about 27 or 30 common hazardous waste treatment facilities are available. So this also shows that there is the facilities available are highly inadequate to handle the hazardous waste which are getting generated. Similarly, in case of fly ash, the generation is estimated at about 150 million tons per annum. The biomedical waste facilities, though we have about 157 of them now in India, they are still inadequate. And the construction and demolition waste is another sector which is a very huge cause of worry, because the material is all inert. Demolition waste is all inert, and which is estimated to be about 25 to 30 million tons per annum. And most of it is getting filling up our landfills, where the landfills should only be taking the other inert waste which are generated from our activities. So, and then in addition, we have other waste like e-waste, battery waste, and which need proper management. This shows the urgent need to carefully analyze each project and plan for the waste generation aspects, that is the safe generation of waste disposal. Now, as we saw last time, the municipal solid waste can be computed from the waste generation factors. The National Building Code of 2016 is giving certain factors for municipal solid waste generation. Then we have the All India Local Self Government (AILSG), which also has developed certain factors for institutional, commercial, and other areas. Now, however, if we look at the earlier slide, the first focus of all planners should be to reduce, recycle, and recover the waste, the contents to the maximum, and have waste minimization to the maximum, so that waste going to land disposal should be reduced to a minimum. um, the various facilities for waste disposal which are in vogue in India. I think these are the pictures of the Ramki site here in Taloja in Maharashtra, and this is the construction debris reutilization plant in near Delhi. And this is a typical cross section of a landfill, how it is developed, and how what we can see here is that even after we take all the precautions in the landfill, like we provide for clay lining and all that to ensure that the waste gets properly filled up, we need to go on continuously monitoring the groundwater quality in order to ensure that the lining is intact, and there is no waste which is contaminating the waterways below. Now, looking at all this picture, I feel very strongly that we should enforce a system of segregation of waste in all the large area development projects, which should be very strictly monitored, and there should be an area where the waste gets sorted out into dry waste and wet waste. There should also be a baling machine which should be compulsory for all the large area projects, so as to compact the waste and reduce the volume which is going out of the facility itself. And larger facilities should plan for biomethanation, while smaller facilities should have in situ composting. So the amount of biodegradable waste which is going to the landfill should also get reduced, and it should be disposed or taken care of at the site itself. Uh, a simple diagram to illustrate how management strategy for a large area development is to be developed. For a large area development project, as we know, construction and demolition debris will be there, which needs to be collected, stored, and transported to a processing facility, or some reuse of that should be made. It should not be sent to the MSW landfill. The MSW itself should be segregated into biodegradable, rejects, combustible, and recyclable waste. And then the disposal strategies may involve composting, landfilling, sending to a refuse derived fuel or a waste to energy plant, or to the recycling mechanism. Now, going to an example of a typical manufacturing industry, I have chosen the bird drug sector. Now, bird drug sector involves a lot of steps. It may involve reaction followed by separation, purification, drying, etc. And at each stage, different types of hazardous waste and pollutants like air or air emissions or water effluent discharges can happen, which have been shown in this particular diagram. Now, as we can see, the different categories of waste which can be generated here are the spent catalysts, residues, mother liquors, spent carbon, ETP primary sludge, and spent solvents. Now, uh, the two three waste which are of very high volume. One is the solvent waste, which solvents are used to a large extent in the bulk drug industry, and therefore the focus of the management plan should be on developing a solvent balance and ensuring that the solvent is distilled and recycled within the site itself. Similarly, the mother liquor, which is having very high content of COD and TDS, because it has about 2%, 2 to 3% of organics, and that needs to be disposed of. This should be treated in-house only. We should not permit this waste to be sent outside. Um, because many times I have seen instances where the waste is been sent to solvent recyclers, but the solvent recyclers do not really have any use of the water content of that waste, and therefore that water ends up going to the CTP, or the going to ends up being discharged outside the solvent recycling facility. So this should be a practice which should be totally prohibited. And ETPs handling mother liquor should have good facility to treat refractory organics by way of multi-effective evaporators. Now coming to mitigation measures for the air environment for large area sources where land clearance is involved, like construction, mining, and other activities. The major sources of emissions are dust and other suspended particulates, and emissions from the gaseous emissions from the various vehicles, as well as the noise from the drilling, blasting activities and the construction machinery. So emission control strategies should include water sprinkling in mine area and along public roads, having barriers and green belt, particularly near areas where there are sensitive features like school or hospitals, etc. Like we go to, if anyone has gone to IIT Mumbai recently, the entire IIT Mumbai has been area has been provided with a noise barrier by MMRDA while expanding the road nearby. Then similarly, there should be a preventive maintenance program for the vehicles to reduce the blast noise. It should be encouraged to use reaper dozers instead of the blasting itself, and to undertake controlled blasting to ensure that the fly rock is minimum. Now, one thing which again comes out from all this is that regular monitoring is very much essential to ensure that all the systems are in place, and sprinkling on mine roads, now public roads, it is very easily said, but and always debate, a cause of debate between the local public, which faces the dust nuisance, and the mining company. And therefore it is very essential that regular and frequent monitoring of ambient air quality and proper records of water sprinkling should be maintained by the proponent. So these are two examples of green belt along the Haloj Road and water sprinkling taking place. Now coming to mitigation sectors for manufacturing sector industry. Now we have a major source is the fuel burning, which is the cause of highest levels of discharge or emission of nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, and particulate matter. Now, the control techniques here for all these three pollutants can be evolved in the can be during pre-combustion, combustion, and post-combustion stage. Like for example, for sulfur dioxide, we can opt to go in for a lower uh, a fuel having lower sulfur content. Like for example, biodiesel. Biodiesel has been used in small scale, but by some of the units in Lote Parshram and in Mahad recently, and the availability has been much improved. And since it has a very low sulfur content, the amount of SO2 which is emitted also goes down. Similarly, for particulate matter, we can go opt for a low ash content coal, like one which is available from Indonesia, has hardly about 8 to 10% of coal, as against the Indian coal, which has about 34 to 35% of ash, even after beneficiation. Now, the control technologies for sulfur dioxide. For large size boilers, you can go in for fluidized bed combustion using limestone or dolomite, etc. And for particulate matter, we can that is during the combustion itself, during the combustion process itself, you can go in for fluidized based combustion. Mm, Whereas in case of nitrogen oxides, there are a lot of combustion related control options which are available, like going in for different types of burners for low excess air, or for stage combustion, or for SCN, sorry, not SCN, it is low burners and low excess air and stage combustion, correct. I'll come to more details on NOx controls in a later slide. uh, and in the end of pipe treatment, that is after the flue gases are released by the combustion, during the combustion stage, we can go in for technologies like flue gas desulfurization, which is very widely used in thermal power plants. It is a very costly technology, but once if you have not controlled the sulfur dioxide, the sulfur content in the fuel itself, or are not able to control it through other techniques, then the only technique which is remaining is the treatment of the off gases which are released. And therefore FGD has to be um, installed. In case of nitrogen oxides, the technologies can include like selective catalytic reduction, SCR, and for particulate matter, it may involve cyclone separators, wet scrubbers, and electrostatic precipitators for large sources, and bag houses, bag filters. Both bag houses, scrubbers, and give 95% plus efficiency of removal of particulates. The cyclone gives typically about efficiency varying from 70 to 90%. Cyclone, there might be some mechanical settling chambers also. And electrostatic precipitator gives a efficiency in excess of 99.5%. But then again, as we go out for higher control technology, the cost increases. Now, similarly, for in case of NOx control, and usually a thermal power plant or a cracker in thermal petrochemical plant or incinerators using conventional burners will have um, a NOx level of about 250 to 500 milligram per normal meter cube. But when we go in for low NOx burner, which may be of two, three different types. One may be low NOx or ultra low NOx burner. We may get levels reduced to from 250 to 100, or maybe even 75 milligram per meter cube. And other technologies which are incorporated is, one is selective catalytic reduction, where ammonia is injected into the combustion chamber, and it reacts with the nitrogen oxide. Again, it reduces the nitrogen oxide level further to about 60 to 75 milligram per meter cube. Steam injection is used in some cases. What steam injection does is it keeps the temperature inside the combustion chamber at an optimum. The NOx formation graph, if you study the NOx formation graph, the NOx level increases as the temperature inside the combustion chamber increases, and that increase is very rapid beyond 900 degrees centigrade. Once the temperature exceeds 900, we have a very high level of NOx. So steam injection helps to have reduce the emissions to the atmosphere by ensuring that the temperature remains optimum about 900 to 1000 degrees centigrade. Now we have already seen this diagram. We are looking at it from a perspective of air emissions now. The manufacturing process of a bird drug industry, as far as the synthesis process is concerned, the fermentation process is concerned, and the extraction process is concerned, we have different types of sources like process vents, storage tanks, fugitive emissions from walls, compressors, etc. The emissions can be broadly broken up into two types. One is the organic emissions, which is volatile organic compounds, and the inorganic emissions. Now, we had studied emissions from different types of processes like ethanol, we have listed the process and the type of organic emission which is likely, and inorganic emission which is likely in all these cases. Now, study of about 374 bulk drug processes has shown that there are about 12 types of inorganic gases which may be generated, while there are about 28 types of VOCs, volatile organic compounds, which may be evolved from the manufacturing processes. And the inorganic emissions include hydrogen chloride, hydrogen bromide, hydrogen cyanide, ammonia, chlorine, bromine, fluorine, mercaptans, etc. While we have seen the list of VOCs. VOCs are compounds which are remaining in the vapor form at 20 degrees centigrade. So these compounds, if they are evolved at 20 degrees centigrade and are in vapor form, then these are called as the volatile organic compounds, which have very high impact on the environment and on humans. They damage the materials. They are odorous. They can damage the photochemical. They can result in a photochemical ozone generation at the ground level. They can destroy the stratospheric ozone and contributes to the global climate change. Now, CPCB has evolved a technique to study and categorize the VOCs into hazardous air pollutants and other VOCs. Hazardous air pollutants are the ones which are having maximum impact to the human beings. Now, similarly, the adverse impacts of the inorganic emissions are that they may be corrosive, they may be highly toxic, they may result in odor formation, or they may result in environmental problems like acid rain, smog, etc. Now, you control the inorganic emissions generally through scrubbers, for water scrubbers for HCl and hydrogen bromide, and a caustic scrubber for other acidic gases like SO2, nitrogen oxides, etc. Now, for VOC emissions, generally the technique which is adopted throughout the country is by that is condensation. Either it may be a single stage condenser or two stage condensers. Condensers generally have efficiency which is varying from 70 to 90%, and in organized sector we see that there may be two or more condensers which may be there in series with coolants at progressively lower temperatures. You know, first condenser is a device where there is VOC going in through one side, and the cooling medium is there in the pipes which are going through the device. So what happens is, if you have organic compounds, they which are there in those gases, they condense out and are removed from the condenser. Now, the cooling medium may be first stage chilled water followed by brine as second stage in order to ensure the maximum recovery. But in small industries, many a times only a single stage condenser is seen. Mm, Most of the units also have installed scrubbers. Now, for VOC reduction, we have different strategies which are quite means which are there are different options which are available, which are better than the condensers. We can go in for an adsorber. Adsorber is a system which uses activated carbons to adsorb the organic compounds on their surface, and then we can have an absorber. Absorber absorbs the organic compound in some other absorbing medium, and both adsorber as well as absorber have absorber is the process which is used in scrubbers, and both have got reduction efficiency more than 95%. Thermal incineration, it is quite possible that we can divert those gases which are produced, process vapor vents which are generated, to an incinerator, which may be thermal incinerator or a catalytic incinerator, which may thermal incinerators have higher efficiency, highest efficiency of about 98%. But one constraint which is there today is that we do not have VOC control standards as of now. Draft standards have been issued by the CPCB and are under finalization, under discussion. Now we go to the mitigation measures for water environment. the first effort or first um, focus of the planner here should be to see how the water environment for the water quantity, water requirement for the project can be reduced, so that the water availability gets improved, so that the water availability outside the project gets improved. Now, the techniques which are available are one is recycle of treated sewage for gardening or for flushing, etc., and recycling of trade effluent back to process or cooling through various treatment plants. Then we may have rainwater harvesting, that is recharging of groundwater and or creating a storage tank where there is temporary storage of water and it is reused into the process. Thereby, the availability of water in the public water domain increases. Then we can have we can provide for water conserving fixtures like water conserving taps, which are special drip type of taps, which have reduced which reduce water requirement drastically. And for some applications like thermal power plant, etc., for applications like cooling, we can provide sea water or brackish water. There, once through cooling is can be provided, and therefore the water can be having a higher TDS content. Uh, Now, to prevent water pollution during large area implementation of a large area development project, what we should do is to study the natural topography, as I have explained in the last session. We need to study the using uh, 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 survey technique or by using drone. We should study the contours which are there, and the drainage patterns, identify the various micro watersheds in that particular site. And once the drainage pattern is identified, we can construct check dams, bunds or terraces. In case our development is like a mine where we have to break the drainage pattern, then there is no then we have to take other steps like provide for garland drains or deepening channel, which we saw in one of the earlier photographs along the lower contour, so as to reduce the water overflow into the other areas. Or we have to provide for settling pits, settling ponds. Settling ponds in case of mines are constructed very they are very simplistic settling ponds, which are constructed out of laterite bunds, and a polylaterite is added so that the solids settle into it. And in case of uh, a property development on hill slopes, actually we should not permit large property developments on hill slopes. Wherever it is possible, we should avoid that area. But wherever excuse me, wherever it is not possible, we should have terracing, so that the impact of the development is reduced. Now, other measures for bulwark sector include let us look at the effluent generation from the bulwark sector, that is the manufacturing sector. In this case, the in case of a bird drug industry, the production is constantly fluctuating. So there is a highly varying load on the ETP due to various batch manufacturing processes as well as rapidly changing product lines. They have, as per the demand of the product, their effluent quantity changes. Now, the effluents which are produced can be like mother liquors separated during product purification, or which have very high refractory COD and a low amount of biodegradable organics. Then uh, typically the effluent also has a very high COD and may have a high TDS. These are some of the emission factors. The effluent generation factors which are available from WHO book on uh, emission inventories, which shows the amount of BOD which can be BOD, suspended solids, and total nitrogen and total phosphorus which can be generated during various bulk production processes. Now, considering the large, highly varying load, what we should have is in the ETP, we should have a good equalization capacity. It should have a facility to remove the solvents. The highly refractory stream should be separately treated, the mother liquors and high TDS stream should be sent to a triple effect evaporator or a multiple effect evaporator, and other effluent which is more or less biodegradable should be sent to the activated sludge treatment process in the ETP, where it can be treated by using microorganisms. So first of all, it is very essential that when we do a planning for the effluent treatment facilities for a bulk drug unit, we should know the effluents which are generated. I have seen some manufacturing units where they have made it a practice that before introducing any bulk drug into their production system, they analyze the effluent which are generated at each step of the manufacturing process. They classify they have some method to classify the effluent based on their degradability as highly biodegradable, meaning the BOD to COD ratio is more than 70%, then it is separated. Whereas if the BOD COD ratio is less than 70%, it is taken to the high COD, high TDS stream. And for all the other effluents, they are the highly degradable effluents are taken to the conventional ETP based on activated sludge process. So this is a typical flow diagram of a very simplified flow diagram for a ETP, which is based upon zero liquid discharge, where the effluents are segregated. Now again, one thing which we should understand here is that the environmental monitoring plays a very key role in segregating the effluents and in treating the effluents and ensuring that the environmental performance standards are met. Record keeping is also a very important aspect. Now, when we go to mitigation measures for the biological environment, there are some general principles which we should adopt all through for all the projects for green belt development as well as restoration of biodiversity. One is that green belt wherever planned should be most based upon native species, indigenous species only. Second is that species which are of special conservation concern should be transplanted. They should not be cut. So before, again, when you are doing an area development project, the ecologist needs to study what are the species which are seen and identify what are the plant, how many plant trees are there, and how many of those are of special conservation concern. Similarly, if any trees have nesting on them, then they should be marked for cutting transplantation at a later stage. Uh, mm, so then the species selection depends upon the agroclimatic zone and soil type or the climate, and depends on the water availability in that area also. The taller plant should be preferred towards the outer periphery, shorter plant towards the inner periphery. Typically for a highway project, this is how we plan the mitigation measures for a highway. We have a double layer system of green belt where there is a smaller tree at the front and a taller tree on the back side. The taller tree should have broader leaves and a bigger canopy also, so as to ensure that the screening effect from the highway is complete. Then the plant should be tolerant to air pollution. Sometimes the species are selected in order to be indicator species for the air pollution which is generated. Uh, then quick growing species will be preferred. Uh, mm, One thing which we should remember about land environment and about biological environment is, though we may try to take the measures for improve for restoration, our measures, the human measures can never replicate the natural ecosystems. One other thing which should be done is that a nursery should be planned or established at the a conceptual stage of the project itself, so that the trees grow up to about 2 or 3 meters high, and then they can be used for plantation purpose. So along with the initiation of the project, particularly for a large area project or for a highway type of development, where the development is on a very large scale, there should be nurseries placed on different at different locations, or there should be a tie-up with different local nurseries, and the species should be specified, so that mm, the survival rate of the trees is high. Now, the other significant improvement which has been seen these days is the planning for which is needed is the planning for the a green layout. We should ensure that the even in case of a manufacturing plant, for example, the layout should be planned in such a way that there is a barrier all around the manufacturing facility. The manufacturing part of the plant is towards the center, and the remaining there is a green layer all around the facility. This has been particularly highlighted because of the incidents which have occurred recently, like at Vizag, etc., where the populace was very close to the uh, manufacturing facility. Now, this is in case of a highway project, as I mentioned, there is a two-layer green belt which is planned with the smaller trees on the front and larger trees on the back side. And for noise attenuation, we can noise barriers can are provided. Now, in case of mitigation measures for socio-economic environment, what we have to realize is that the proponent is the one who is coming up with a plan to develop a industry, to install a industry, or to start a mining activity in a particular region. There are locals there who are already been staying there for large number of years. Now, therefore, in order to make the project acceptable to the locals, and in order to have the proponent should plan a development by providing for some social upliftment measures in the vicinity of the project, and thereby gain the confidence of the people, as also along with his own uh, benefit, that is the he gets a easier way of installing the process at the plant or the activity to start the activity, and he also ensures the social upliftment of that area. Now, earlier there was a provision in the means there is a provision even today in the Companies Act to provide for CSR funds, that is corporate social responsibility funds. Now, in CSR was a percentage of the net profit, and funds were to be utilized for um, community upliftment, and they should have a component for the however, uh, what happens is CSR is to be spent as a percentage from the net profit. Since the unit itself is not in operation, if for a new or a greenfield unit, uh, this does not become binding, whereas they are the ones who are setting up the new project. A very good scheme which was introduced by MOFCC, which is the Corporate Environment Responsibility Fund. In this case, the proponent has to provide a certain percentage of the project cost, project capital investment, depending upon whether it is a greenfield project or a brownfield project, and has to prepare a CER plan, which is to be approved by the district magistrate. And the CER funds are to be spent for various activities like infrastructure creation for drinking water supply, sanitation, health, education, skill development. A very good focus of the CR program was that you have to create, the funds have to be spent on creating actual infrastructure, not on soft type of activities like health camps and stuff like that. because now the need has come to show some actual work in that area. That is what is been recognized, and it is a very good scheme. The end objective is to bring an improvement in the quality of life of the um, affected people. Now, what we are observing as a practicing consultant in this field is that many proponents submit the consultants prepare the CR plan based upon their assessment of needs in that area, and the plan is submitted to the district magistrate, and the district magistrate has his own different priorities. So he comes up with uh, he says, "Okay, no, no, you just keep this plan aside, and we have a certain other project which is pending in the same area because of lack of funds, and therefore you provide funds for that project." So this defeats the entire purpose of the CR activity. It is not going to result in any uh, uh, means the local populace may not really be needing that project for all we know. So uh, what we recommend here is that the proponent should engage the local community in dialogue and put up a CR plan for scrutiny with the Gram Sabha, along with funds to be made available in each year. The Gram Sabha the proponent should invite suggestions, objections from the Gram Sabha, and they should also prioritize for various actions and which are decided or planned, and only after getting the approval of the Gram Sabha, proponent should approach the district collector for their approval. With the approval of the Gram Sabha, so again it will be ensured that the project which the locals want is the project which will be implemented, and therefore the that will give a greater that will result in a greater um, synergy or uh, uh, being developed between the proponent and the locals in this case. And the other thing which we recommend is that the company should engage a contractor and make direct payment to the contractor to ensure that the tasks which are identified are completed. The money should not be given to the local gram panchayat or through or to any of the because then it will ensure that the project gets completed. Now, the last portions which are very important in the management aspect is in the EMP are the management aspects of the EMP. Now, management aspects include, one is the budget for implementation, which includes both capital and operational expenses. Now, it is very essential since the environmental budget becomes a part of your EMP document and part of your EIA. Many of your scrutinizing agencies like MOFCC or SPCB or the funding agencies financing major infrastructure projects like ADB or World Bank, they look at the budget for implementation and see how much have you really spent on those accounts. So it is essential that proponents should do a realistic budget by taking some quotes from some of the vendors. There should be some margin which is kept for that, for escalations, etc., or for changes in technology, environment protection technologies. And a track should be kept by keeping a separate account of all the budget measures. Then the second aspect, which is most important, is the organogram for EHS management. The company should provide for a environment management cell, fixing responsibilities for implementation of the EMP, and for the reporting hierarchy should be very clear. That is, the head of EHS should report to whom, and in case of complaints, the redressal mechanism should also be addressed in the EMP. We should give who will attend to the complaints, the mechanisms for closure of complaint, and feedback to the complainant so as to ensure that he feels that his complaint has been taken due cognizance of. Then the other important aspects include, one is the legal register, where all the laws which are applicable to the project, the environmental laws and the requirements under those laws should be clearly identified. Then the compliance schedule should be fixed, like what are the returns to be filed, the frequency of filing returns, and the likely dates for submission during different phases of the project lifecycle. And a monitoring plan should be included, which includes all the which covers all the four phases that of the project lifecycle. That is the construction phase, construction, erection, and commissioning phase, operation phase, and closure phase. All four aspects are properly defined. Now, the monitoring plan should include the frequency of monitoring, the parameters of monitoring, the agency responsible for monitoring, and monitoring budget. Um, so as to make it very clear. And one suggestion, which again I have, is that instead of making the EMP into a very large document, which is a large written document, we should try to make the EMP based on a tabular format, so that it is very simple for everyone to understand. Uh, I think I have covered all the aspects which I wanted to cover in the EMP aspects, in the development of EMP, and the contents of the EMP. Uh, I will be glad to take up any questions whenever it is required. Thank you.